Okay. So if you remember last week, we looked at the types of income that different types of sports organisations are going to be most likely to attract. So grant funding, government funding, membership fees, for example. We looked at the pros and cons of incorporation and what that actually means to a lot of different sports clubs in terms of their reporting requirements, the limited liability for committee members, for example. We looked at a number of different legal structures that sports organisations might adopt, whether that be a company limited by guarantee or a company limited by shares or perhaps a charitable organisation. And we looked specifically at community amateur sports clubs and charitable sports clubs as well, particularly around tax benefits. So good to have that kind of knowledge of the different types of sports that we'll be talking about. But today we're shifting our attention a wee bit to budgeting. So we're going to do first 2 sessions specifically on budgeting. And we're going to get you doing some budgeting yourself in preparation for your first assignment. Okay. So we're going to look at why organizations budget, budgeting in theory, and we'll look at a 9-step process that organizations will undertake. We'll look at some of the pros and cons of budgeting. So budgeting obviously sounds great, but what are some of the issues perhaps with that? And as I say, we're going to be getting you to do some budgeting firsthand. Hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll understand the purpose of why sports organizations budget. You'll be able to describe those 9 stages of budgeting. You'll be able to critique those advantages and disadvantages of budgeting. And hopefully you'll be able to put together both a simple budget, but also perhaps a more complex budget for a sports organisation. So first thing I want you to do is go to the Canvas page for this week. If you can go to classes and load up. Yes? Can you right click it and download it? Or this? What does this do? Maybe you're on the Canvas app. Could you go to Canvas, the website? That might be easier. Through the Sterling portal. Yeah. So if you go to classes from the homepage, can you? Yeah, you got it. And then scroll down to week 3. And then if you scroll down to seminar activities, I can show you on the page.
Scrolling on the ball.
Correct. Yes, that's it. So we're looking for under the classes tab, week 3. Once the video is finished, we'll put the video here. The slides are here if you want to download them. But this little exercise is what we're going to work through just now. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is open up Microsoft Excel and start to populate some of the detail that is in here. Okay. So there should be a Excel worksheet, so you can download this worksheet. And this will give you the structure to fill in that information. Okay, so just spend some time working through the budget. I'm going to do it as well, so we'll all be doing it together. And how many of you have never used Excel before? You've never used Excel, okay? A couple of you have never used Excel. Okay, that's absolutely fine. So what we're going to do is get you familiar with what Excel does and how you can use it, because it's going to be important to your first assignment. Okay. So we can see here on the detail on the Canvas page, the information that we're going to need to complete. So we've got Sterling on the ball. They're going to be organising a 1-day open coaching session designed to bring fans and aspiring coaches together to experience high-quality football coaching and gain insight into professional coaching techniques. The club was expecting 100 participants, and they want to achieve a profit of £1,000 to reinvest into community initiatives and club development. So we've got our costs of what we know it's going to cost to run the event for the day. Okay. But what we want to find out is how much we need to charge each participant in order to generate £1,000 profit. Okay, is that clear? So our first step is to start populating this. So we don't know the registration fees yet because that's the thing that we need to find out. But we do know what our costs are going to be. So if we look to our local facilities, what is the cost of the facilities for the day? Anybody? What's it going to cost us to get a facility to run the session for the day?
600.
Yep, £600. So we can pop £600 into our facilities column. Okay. Coaches?
300.
300.
Into 1200.
Yes. So yes, that's right. Let's have a look. Sorry, let's just confirm this. We've got 4 professional coaches, each paid £300 for their services. Okay. So obviously, you know how to do what 4 times 300 is, right? You know that would give you 1,200. But what I'd like to do is show you how you can do that very easily, because not all sums are going to be that easy on Excel. So I appreciate some of you will be familiar with this, but for those that aren't. So when we're in a cell, okay, if we use the equals button, okay, and then sum, that tells Excel that we want to do a sum, a calculation of some sort, okay? Now, when we do an open bracket, we can tell it which cell or which numbers that which calculations we want to do, okay? So equal sum, open bracket. Now we've got 4 coaches, and we know that we're going to be paying them £300, right? Okay, so we've got 4 times 300, close brackets. It's going to tell us that it's £1,200. Okay. So have a go at popping that in. I know you all know it's 1,200, but if you could just pop that in just to get used to doing the formula. Okay, so our next line is advertising and promotion. What's that cost to us?
800.
Sorry?
800.
800, yes, correct. Equipment hire?
600.
600. Water and snacks for the participants?
£8.
Yeah. So we're thinking £8 per participant. Okay, so we're perhaps, and we know how many participants are we expecting?
100.
Okay, so again, we can do our open sum, open bracket, sorry, equal sum, open bracket, 8. And then to do time, sorry, I should have said it's not an X like it would be on a calculator, but it's the star button. Okay, so it's the star button, which is the shift key and 8. If you look at 8 on the second from top row on your keyboard, it will have 8 and it should have a star above it. Might be slightly different depending on what country your laptop is from. But we know that there's going to be 100 participants and we're going to be charging them £8 each. Or sorry, it's going to cost us £8 per participant. Okay, so we close bracket, we're going to have 800 there. We're going to need some insurance to run the event in case anything happens. So how much is that going to cost us?
600.
600. Okay, and signage and materials.
400.
How much, sorry?
400.
400. Okay, great. So we have all of our costs here, right? So what we now need to do is work out how much all of these are together. Now, you could sit there with a calculator and you could pop all of that in, but what Excel does is allow us to do this real quick. Okay, so again, if we go to our equals button, okay, what we can do is we can actually drag from our top one that we want, drag it down, okay, and press, sorry, do you know what's going to be easier? I'm just going to do equals sum, open brackets, and then drag it down, close brackets, and it's going to tell us our total expenditure for the event, okay? Everyone okay doing that? Anybody have any issues? All makes sense so far? So we know what our total expenditure is going to be for the event. It's £5,000. We want to make a £1,000 profit, right? So how much are we going to have to charge in order to make a £1,000 profit? So we can do a reverse sum here. Okay, we know what our costs are. We know we want to make £1,000. So what would we need to do to work out our fee per participant? Remember, we've got 100 participants, right? How much would we end up be charging? 60. So yeah, we know that our profit is going to be 1,000, or we want to achieve £1,000 profit, and we know therefore that we need to generate £6,000. So it's quite a simple one, but we can go equals sum 6,000 divided by 100. 100 divided by, six. No, it is 6,000. I was double guessing myself there. And we know that we need to generate £6,000 in income. Okay, from 100 people, it's going to be 60. Okay, so our total fee, we can do that reverse, is going to be. Now, what we can also do, something new to introduce here. If everyone got that last equation, okay, so we knew we needed to generate £6,000 and we can divide it. And again, the divide sign is not the same, okay, so the divide sign is the slash, okay, so you go backslash and that tells us that we're going to divide by 100 people, yeah. So that's going to give us our registration fee that we're going to charge. However, what we now need to do is work out what, or just fill in the blank here. So again, equals sum, and something new to introduce here is, let's just add a quick line in here. Oops, apologies, I'm making a bit of a mess of this. Number of participants. Okay, we know it's going to be 100 people. Okay, so equals sum 60 times by 100. Okay, so rather than typing out the numbers, we can pop the cell in. Now, the benefit of doing that is if we ever needed to adjust the budget, we can just change the number in the cell and it will update the rest of the budget accordingly. Okay, so that's going to tell us it's £6,000. And then our final bit that we need to complete here is equals sum our total income, take away the minus sign, our total expenditure, close brackets, £1,000, right? So our magic number is 60. Everyone happy with that? Does that make sense? No? Some concerns? Too fast? Too fast? We'll be doing more of these, but what we need to know is the equal sign, the sum, open brackets, and that's going to allow us to do the equation, okay? So we've got more of these that we're going to do over the course of the session, but that's just to get you to grips with how to use Excel and how to use it in a budgeting sense, okay? So you've got your registration fee, okay? Our total income. We know we've got 100 participants, right? So if we go to our total income, pop the cell, yeah, and then do the equal sum, yeah, open brackets. Our number of participants is 100, and then the multiply sign, yeah, good, and we can click that cell, and then close brackets. So that's the end of the equation, and then enter. Okay. And then the final bit that you will probably be missing is if you scroll down, yeah, it's filling in that. So do you reckon you can do that one? So our total income minus our total expenditure. How are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm trying to create another cell.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you right click on number 4, you've got a right click button. Yeah, and then go insert. Yeah. Okay. You guys okay? You've got it? Yep. You've got it? Yep. Any issues? No? You good? Okay. Any issues over here? Perfect. Okay. And then if you were to work out the profit, what would you need to do? It's quite satisfying when it actually comes out with the right number, right? Makes you feel good. Okay. Everyone okay with that for now? Yeah? Yep. Everyone ended up with 1,000? And the registration fee? So, what we're going to do now is something slightly more trickier. There's going to be more aspects to this. Okay? If you go to the next exercise on Canvas, it's going to be a bit more complex. So that was quite a simple one. We're going to do something slightly more complex now. Okay, and we'll work through it again together. So our complex event budget, and again, we've got the Excel document that we can open up. Okay, we can cancel that. We can close our event budget. And we've also got the information sheet. So the information that you need to complete it is on this task. It's on this sheet, okay? And we'll need to populate it in here, right? So just spend a little bit of time reading through it. I'm gonna get my laptop as well, and I will work through it. And if you're not comfortable doing it yourself just now, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so from our information sheet, okay, so just to be careful that you can read this. Okay, so this is each item, how many are required, okay, and then the price each, okay. So you might want to set up a separate table just to populate that.
इसका लैपटॉप चला ओपन द चीट ये वाला नहीं तो उसके जहाँ से कॉपी करना ये है हाँ ये है राइट एक्टिविटी open this copy this इसलिए इसे कमांड कर सकते
How's everyone getting on? Okay. Yeah. That's where having two screens is really quite helpful. Okay, so once you've done that, you should be able to work out your equipment costs. So it's okay if you're not quite completed that little table yet of equipment, but we know what would be helpful here is to have a total for each. Okay, so we know, for example, now this is where it's worth paying a bit of attention to. So we've got one required times by 1,250. Okay, so that's going to be a fairly straightforward one. However, this is quite a neat little thing that you can do with Excel. So now that you've got this equation telling you that it's going to be from this column times by this column, if you see that little green square right in the corner, we can drag that down and it's going to apply that formula to each cell retrospectively. Okay, so that should be 2 times 250, right? So it applies that formula to each of these lines, okay? So we know that our total, again, with equal sum, we can drag down now. Our total equipment cost is going to be 3,450. Does that make sense? Yeah? So equipment. Another cool little thing you can do here is rather than just type out 3,450 into this equipment cell here, Because imagine actually we come to the event next year, we want to use our same budget, but we've realized we need some more equipment. So we need more of these. So now that we've got our equation in there, if I change that to 8, it's going to update it automatically, right? So rather than just copy out 3,450, and then next year we're going to have to try and work out all the numbers again, what I can do is I can say on the equipment page, I want this cell to replicate this cell. And it's going to copy it. So if I ended up changing something in here, so that's actually now going to be 300, it's going to update it here as well. Does that make sense?
Can you show that again?
So if you want to replicate or mirror a cell, it's quite a simple equation. It's just equals, sorry, it's not even equals sum, it's just equals that cell. Okay? Yep. And we can also add a total here, and we know, for example, what this is going to be.
Do we have to do it for the 4 days?
But it's for 4 days, quite right. So let's just ignore that for now. So what do you think our equation would be to work out? So we know what it is for 1 day. What would it be if we were going to do it for 4 days? Multiply, yeah. So here we've got 8 times by 75 times by the number of days, close brackets. It's going to tell us $2,400, pounds, okay? And again, we can drag that down. It's going to tell us the same for the sound and lighting operator. Okay. So our accommodation for referees. So no actual payment for referees, but generally the practice that referees who have travelled interstate with fully paid accommodation provided. The number of such referees requiring such accommodation is 6. Okay, so number of referees, 6. And the average accommodation cost is expected to be $120 per night. Okay. Accommodation for these 6 referees needs to be provided the night before the event starts and each night after there has been a day of competition. So how many do we need to be providing? So the day before and the day of. How many nights are we therefore going to be paying for? Four days of competition, and we need to get one the night before it starts. What do we think? It's going to be 5 nights, okay? So, and again, our equation here is going to be the same as it was before. So we've got 6 referees who are paying $120 per night, and it's going to be for 5 nights. It doesn't matter the order in which you do them, and that's going to be $3,600. Okay. So we're starting to populate a few different costs here. Put these ones in bold so we don't lose track of them. Okay, what else is it telling us? Program printing. The official tournament program is expected to have 8 A4 pages, full color both sides, folder and stapled in the middle to make a booklet of 16 A5 pages. It's been agreed that arrangements should be made for 1,000 programs. This will require 8,000 pages to be printed. Okay, you've received a quote from the printer that quantities of 1,000 sheets. 1 sheet full color both sides will cost 40p or 40 cents. There is an additional cost of $50 for stapling and folding and making 1,000 booklets. You'll be able to alleviate the cost of this program printing by charging spectators $5 per program. So our income line, Okay, we've got two separate lines, one for income and one for costs. So our income line, we're going to be charging, I'm not quite sure how many spectators we're expecting, but we know we're going to charge $5 per program. Yeah. I don't think we know how many we're expecting yet, do we? It's got a maximum capacity of 3,000, but we don't know quite how many people are going to be coming yet. Okay, so let's work on our costs. So our program printing, we've got 1,000 programs that we're going to be printing, and 8 pages, and the cost per page is going to be 0.4 because it's going to be 40 cents. Yeah. Okay, and our total cost therefore is going to be equal sum this times this times this. Okay. Does that make sense? Yep. And our program stapling, we know it's going to be a one-off fee of $50. So again, we've got some more costs here. Okay, trophies. Let's move down to trophies. So categories, a very large number of trophies will be needed. The tournament will have a total of 8 bodyweight divisions. That's 8 for men and 7 for women. So we're going to have 15 potentially. There'll be need to present a first, second, and third place trophy in each of these 15 bodyweight divisions. So we're going to need 45. It's been agreed that you have $100 to spend on trophies for each bodyweight division, and that will be apportioned as followed. Okay. So again, we might need to work out some additional numbers here. But actually, all we need to know is that we've got 100 in total, and we've got 15 categories, right? So our sum is going to be fairly straightforward here. $1,500. Okay. So the function, there'll be 2 functions, one to open the event on the first day and one immediately after the event on the last day. Okay. The first function is an official opening function for dignitaries only. The second is a dinner for all competitors, officials, and volunteers. Catering company has been contacted for both events and has provided the following details of costs. Opening function, the expected number of officials, sponsors, and dignitaries will be 50 persons. Okay, so we know it's going to be 50 people at the first one. The catering company will provide finger food and beverages at a price of $15 per head. Closing function, the expected number of persons will be 300 people at a cost of $20. There will also be some entertainment at a cost of $500 for the night. So we know for the opening function, it's going to be fairly straightforward. We've got 50 people coming, $15 a head. Do our multiple sum. We can't drag this one down because we've not times this column yet, so we're going to have to do 300 people times by $20 per person. Okay, but we're not going to be timesing it by the entertainment, right? Because that's a one-off cost. It's not per person. So actually, we can then close bracket, or sorry, add the plus sum plus the 500. Okay. So we were timesing the number of people by the cost, but we had a one-off cost of 500. So that doesn't matter how many people actually turn up. That's an additional one-off cost. So do we have all of our costs in place? I think we do, don't we? So we can work out our total costs for the event. And now the quickest way to do that is equal sum. And now because they're all in the same column, we can drag down. We haven't got any advertising costs. I've missed one out. Advertising, sorry. You'll need to advertise the events. So ignore that there. You will need to advertise the event in the regional newspaper at a cost of $500, and purchase some 10 radio adverts of 30-second durations costing $3,000 in total. Okay, another cost there. Okay, it's a cost. It's a cost. So now we can do our equation. We've got all the costs in place. We're going to drag from the top to the bottom, and that is going to include all of those costs together. So we should have sorry, I've got that slightly wrong.
The advertising cost 3,500.
Yes, because sorry, I was looking at I was misreading it. So
Yeah.
the 10 radio adverts are 3,000 plus the $500. Yeah. So the total costs are 26,230. Okay. So now we need to work out the income for the event. So we know what our costs are going to be. Now we know that the normal cost of a spectator ticket is $10 per day. Okay, so and we know roughly what our costs per day are going to be, or sorry, what our expected attendance is going to be per day. So our total here is going to be quite simple. It's going to be that first column number times by the second column number, close brackets. Okay, and again we can be quite cute here and use our little drag down button, and that's going to give us our, oh sorry, I put the wrong number in here. It's 1,000, not 4,000. Okay, so now we know what we're expecting, and again we can drag down and it's going to add all of those numbers up for us. So we're expecting 24,000. Now the only other thing that we've haven't got here is our program sales, right? So we are expecting program sales. Got 1,000 programs, and we're going to sell them for $5 each. By this column. Okay, so our total is then going to add oops. Sorry, apologies. The quickest way to do this would be to okay, so total income, hopefully you should have 29,000 income, and we should have costs of 26,200. So our total is going to be our total income minus our total expenditure, and that's going to tell us we're going to have a forecast profit of $2,770. Does that make sense? Any bit there that you would like me to go over? Did anybody come up with a different number? I'm going to assume silence is good. I'm taking it as good. All okay here? Yeah. Anybody come up with a completely different number? Fair play, the audacity to wear the Manchester United hat today. It's very brave.
This one program I missed.
So the program, we've got 1,000 programs, right? And we think that we can sell them, or we're going to try and sell them for $5 each.
Okay.
Yep. So that should be quite a straightforward one to pop in. Okay. So that make sense? Is there any part of the screen you'd like me to scroll up to if you want to see a calculation?
Which is equal. I did like if I had to like say,
So you've got 1,000.
should I calculate together?
Yeah. Yeah. So multiply them together. Yeah.
Like this, and then
Would that work? I don't know. Actually, it might work. But actually, what would be better is to times that by that times that.
you mean individual.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, multiplied by 8, multiplied by 0.4.
This.
Not going to yeah.
Formula.
Okay, I think it may be just this one here. So if you
Yeah, remove the
that's it, and then close
I don't think.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can I see the income side?
Yes. Let me make the screen big.
I like the cell.
His profit.
Profit.
He's added the program 5,000.
How you getting on? Any bits you're struggling with?
This side, because the numbers aren't even.
Okay, that doesn't matter too much. But you can, if it bothers you, you can click it and move the alignment there, like on Word.
Align.
Yeah, that's it. But you're okay with the equations?
The equations, all I've been doing now is just manually.
Okay.
I'll still go back and
Yeah.
get a hang of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How you getting on? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it? Great. All good? Got it.
I couldn't get the program.
The program. So the program, we've made 1,000 of them. We're going to sell them for $5 each. Yeah. So just make sure that you include that into your total. Otherwise, you're going to end up at a loss rather than a profit.
The program, where is it in the question?
So the program is under the program section, and it says that we're going to be able to alleviate some of the costs of it by selling $5 per program. Did you see that?
Program printing?
Yes, under the program printing bit.
The second paragraph.
It says you'll be
Okay.
able to alleviate the cost of the program printing by charging spectators $5 per program, and we've got 1,000 of them, right?
Yeah.
Always start with equal to when you're
Okay, everyone happy with that? Ready to move on? Yep. Of course, feel free to work on this at home. Okay, so yeah. So what we've got here with budgeting, so obviously you've now done a couple of budgeting exercises, one with our simple event and one with our more complex event. Okay, what we're trying to do is think about how sports organizations plan ahead financially. Okay, so management accounting, process of identification, measurement, accumulation, analysis, preparation, interpretation, and communication of financial information. So over the course of this module, you'll look at each of these different aspects. Okay, so the communication of financial information is the things like balance sheets and the profit and loss statement. Okay, we're going to be looking at that later on. But before we do that, we need to actually know how we're going to plan ahead for the future. So budgeting is a forward-looking exercise. We're trying to plan ahead for the next 12 months or for an event. Okay, we're trying to plan ahead. We're not necessarily reporting on what has happened like some of those financial accounts do, but we're actually thinking about the future. So it involves being proactive with the use of the data that we have available to us and use it for planning, decision making, and control purposes. Okay, so by contrast, financial accounting data is used for reporting financial performance on a historic basis. Okay, so we see a difference here. Budgeting, we're going to be looking forward, plan for the future, whereas actually when we look at profit and loss statements, financial reports and statements, they are reporting on what the organization has done over the last 12 months. You see, we've got a slight difference there between the two. So no credible manager will plan to record financial transactions and wait to see what happens at the end of the year. So we don't just set a budget and then just hope at the end of the year that the budget has been met. We've got to actually make sure that we are keeping up to date with how the budget is going, how are we actually performing against what we said we were going to perform, and to take action and take corrective decision. To ensure that we've got a match between what we plan to happen and what happened in reality. And this is our budgeting. So we're not just going to drift from year to year. We're not just going to hope that actually miraculously we're doing well financially. We have to plan for the future and make sure that we have a strategy, a kind of a planned way forward for what we want to do financially. Okay, so organizations, we're not just going to drift from year to year. We're going to plan accordingly. So well-managed organizations will plan their activities in advance and monitor their financial performance on a regular basis. And the process of budgeting is essentially about the plan, the organization's program expressed in financial terms. So it's the estimate of how much we think we're going to generate as an organization or revenue as an organization, and then how much we think we're going to have to pay to or spend to achieve our organizational goals. It's usually going to be for a 1-year process, but there might be slightly different budgets. So our budget sets out in monetary terms the plans for income and expenditure in respect of a future period of time. So as I say, we're not reporting on what has happened. We're trying to plan ahead for the future. And it's prepared in advance of that time period based on the agreed objectives of that period, together with the strategy to achieve those objectives. So it should be a continuous part of business life. As I say, we're not just going to set the budget and then just leave it and come back to it next year and set a different budget. We're going to make sure that we set the budget and then we review it over the course of the year. How are we actually performing against what we said we were going to do? Do we need to take action? Are we spending too much money on tea and coffee and not enough money on salaries, okay, for example? So why budget? Okay, we need to know what our future income is going to be. We also need to know what our future expenditure is going to be. It's going to allow us to prepare for a specific period of time. It's going to allow us to make decisions about the organization or the club. Okay, it's going to allow us to plan for the future, and it's going to investigate the differences or variance. So when we're talking about variance, what we're actually talking about is how much we projected we were going to generate from a particular activity versus what we actually made. So if we said that we were going to do sponsorship, we're a football club, we wanted to try and get £1,000 in sponsorship. We actually only ended up making £800 in sponsorship. We've got a variance of £200. Okay. And we'll need to think about why that was not met, or why we have a negative variance in that sense. Is it because we didn't have, there weren't enough opportunities for sponsorship? Perhaps we didn't push it hard enough. Perhaps our staff didn't have the sales experience to get that target. So we need to review that. So actually creating a budget, this is going to be the focus of your first assignment. You're going to be doing a cash flow budget, which we'll come to, but creating a budget, relatively straightforward process, necessary to know how much money is going to be coming into the organization, how much we're actually going to be spending, and how much money should be spent going forward. So we need to know what our sources of revenue are, or how much money is going to come in, including in-kind contributions, the cost of the services to the organization delivers, any overhead costs, including salaries, rent, and electricity, and any other costs, such as investment in equipment, maintenance, fringe benefits, volunteer benefits, and payroll taxes. So, if you could go down to the third exercise on this week's Canvas page and just have a look at the Amateur Rugby Club. Okay, have a think about all. Actually, is it on there? No, it's not on there. Okay, don't worry. What I'd like you to do is just think about what amateur rugby club, what do you think all their lists of income and expenditure would actually be? So make a note of all the things that you think an amateur rugby club, say it's Stirling County Rugby Club down the road. What do you think are all the things that they would be expected to pay for and expected to generate an income over the course of a season or a year? Have a think. What do you think we would need to pay out, and what do you think we would generate? Make a list, or actually, you can just shout them out. So, what do you think? We're a rugby club. Let's start with let's think with our costs. Okay, so jerseys. Yep. Equipment. So we're going to have to pay for balls, cones, bibs. Yep. The coaching staff. Good. So we're going to have cost for coaching staff.
Maintenance of facility.
Pitch. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe if we own the pitch, we need to maintain it, or if we don't own it, we need to pay to hire it. Yeah. What else do you think?
What's the salary?
Salary. Yeah. If we've got coaches, yeah, we'll need to pay salary. If we are paying players, maybe it's a semi-professional team, we might need to pay players. Yeah. Anything else you can think of? Maybe if we own the clubhouse, we might need to pay for tax or rent of the clubhouse, or the upkeep of the clubhouse. Yeah, the maintenance. Yeah, travel. Yeah, travel expenses. Good. So if we're playing away, the coaches might need to get travel expenses. Yep.
Player fees.
Player fees. Yeah. So maybe if we're paying players when we're actually purchasing players, we might need some budget for that. Okay. Good. What about income then? What do you think we're going to generate in income?
Membership fees.
Membership fees. Yep. Good. Maybe we have numerous different community teams that we run. They each pay a membership fee. Yep. Merchandise. Yeah. We might sell replica jerseys or something similar. Yeah. Ticket sales. So we might sell tickets to our matches. How much are we going to generate from that on over the course of the season? Yeah. Sponsorship. Good. So maybe local businesses that are trying to engage, or advertising boards around the stadium, around the pitch. Good. Broadcasting, potentially, maybe unlikely at that level, but yeah, there might be a good season. We might do very well in one of the cups. Yeah. Okay, maybe teas and coffees on match days, beverages. Yeah. Player sales. Maybe we buy players, we might sell players or get compensation for certain players. Okay. Yeah, tickets, of course, is going to be a big source of revenue for us. Okay, so there's lots of different information that we'd actually need to try and work out how much we think we're going to need over the course of the season. And what we've got to try and do is make sure that that list of expenses that we had isn't too high in comparison to what we're hoping to generate. So if we don't hit our sponsorship target for the course of the year, or we end up not having any broadcast, or the performance is bad and people actually don't come to the games, we don't sell any tickets, we're going to be in a bit of a sticky situation. Okay. So we need lots of different bits of information that are going to help us budget for the season. So, for example, how many members are we actually going to need to make that all viable? We're going to work out our costs and then try and work out how much we need to generate. What price do we need to charge for belonging to the club? How much should members be charged for match fees? What will the cost of running and maintaining the clubhouse for the benefit of the members be? What will the cost of paying for match officials? How much revenue can be generated from the bar, the catering, for example? We might have a bar and we'll sell alcohol. How much money can be realized from fundraising activities? And what investments are necessary to improve the infrastructure and services of the club? So what we're trying to do here is budget to make sure that we survive as a club. So organizational survival, meaning that actually when we've worked out all of our costs, worked out all of our income, and we're not at a massive deficit, which is going to threaten the future of the club. We're going to be able to survive going forward. Okay. So we've got lots of different types of budgets as well. Okay. So we've got a short-term budget. So that might be over the, might just be a 1 year period that we're looking at. It could even just be a quarter that we're going to revise it. So perhaps every 3 months, we're going to have a look at a budget. So short-term budget. We might have a longer-term budget, 3 to 5 years. Okay, so we'll be looking to the longer-term future. What would be some of the difficulties, do you think, in trying to do a longer-term budget for a sports club, a professional sports club?
Threat of relegation will change things.
Yeah, so if we were somebody like Norwich City in the Championship, quite hard for us to budget 5 years' time because we don't know what division we're going to be playing in. We could be playing against Man City and Liverpool 1 week, but we might be playing against Luton and perhaps some Leeds, some of the smaller clubs in England. Okay, so as I say, there's business planning versus budgeting. So what we're going to be looking at later on in the module is how we actually present how the organization has performed in statement form. So we're going to look at our balance sheets, we're going to look at our profit and loss statements, okay? But actually what we're focusing on here is what are we going to do in the future? So it's going to be a forward-looking process, okay? So we're going to be looking at financial expectations or predictions. Okay, we're not going to have a break because unfortunately we're kind of scrapped for time. Sorry, I hope that's okay. We will finish up a wee bit earlier though. So our budgeting model, okay, we've got a 9-step budgeting process here that we're going to look at. Okay, so first one, define our objectives. So our organisation, we are an amateur rugby club. What is our objective for the organisation over the course of the year? Is it to win something? Is it to grow our community programme? Is it to develop our clubhouse and generate more revenue? So we need to work out what our objectives are as an organisation, and we need to then try and find out we're not going to do that, sorry, but we're going to work out whether we've got the resources to do it. So we've worked out what our objective is. Let's say it's to win the Premiership. We are West Ham United. We're going to win the Premiership next year, okay? Don't laugh because it could happen, right? So we've got our objective as an organisation. We need to work out if that's realistic, but that's maybe something else, okay? But then we need to audit our resources. So of our resources, why do you think West Ham perhaps don't have the resources to win the Premier League?
Good players.
Well, let's not go that far. I mean, they've got very good players, but
They can compete in terms of wage bills.
yes, okay, good. So the amount of money that they can afford to spend is going to be significantly less than Manchester City, Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. Okay, so realistically, there's going to be at least 6 teams that have got a bigger budget that can afford to pay for better players, right? So we would need to then look at our resources. Do our resources align with our objective? We would then at that point go, no, we probably aren't going to achieve the Premier League title based on the resources that we've got. What we would then do is work out what could we do then? We've got to say, right, based on what we're currently spending, we haven't got what it takes to win the Premier League. What are our 2 options, do you think? Okay, develop the youth. That would be a long-term strategy. But for that particular season, what would we then do?
Qualify for Europe and then.
Good. We would do that. Hopefully that would help because we'd generate more revenue. That's a longer-term strategy. But for that particular objective, what needs to happen? Probably got 2 options. First option would be to change the objective. So actually, you're right. Maybe it's unrealistic to win the Premier League. Let's try and qualify for Europe. Okay. Or the second objective would be, well, we need to increase our resources. So that's where you might spend more than you could actually realistically afford, which is where a lot of clubs get into trouble. But we've got two things that we can do at that stage: change the objective or change the resources. Okay. So that second step is having a look at what resources do we have. Do the resources actually align with what we're trying to do? Operationalize strategies. Okay, so having to find what we want to achieve and confirm that we have the resources. So we've now said we're going to try and qualify for the Europa League. The budgeting process evolves to consider the day-to-day tactics to be used to meet the objectives. So what does the organization want to deliver? What resources do we need to deliver it? And what does the organization need to do to try and achieve its objectives? So this is Tri Scotland, so Triathlon Scotland. So this is how their vision and mission eventually actually feeds into their budget. So they're very aligned in terms of the process, how you go from what the mission of the organization is, how that then feeds into a strategic plan, and then actually ends up in what the budget is set and how that budget then helps you realize what your vision is. Okay, so it's all should be closely aligned. It shouldn't just be set by finance people. Everyone should be involved in setting that budget. Okay, and working out how the organization is going to achieve its goals. So allocate responsibility. So we're then thinking about who is it that's going to be tasked with taking this budget forward, who's going to be responsible for each part of that budget. Obviously, we're thinking about things like merchandise, perhaps, or we're thinking about TV or broadcasting, or we're thinking about community. There's multiple different areas within the club where we would need to use different people who are going to be responsible for different budgets. Okay, so that's where we're allocating the resources to help us achieve our goals. Prepare the budgets. So it's actually only till step 5 in this budgeting process that we're actually preparing the budgets. So worth noting that the actual preparation doesn't occur until the midpoint of the budgeting process. Important because it makes the point that budgeting is not an isolated process and is integral to overall business planning. Okay, so here we could then think about high-level budget preparation. So this would be just thinking of each category very broadly. Okay, but then we can go into it in a lot more detail as well. So we can drill down and we can say how much each of these specifically is going to cost us. Okay, now you perhaps wouldn't need to look at that at the board level, but each department would need to be aware of how much they're planning to spend in each of those lines. So this would be perhaps for a swimming organisation, might be Swim Scotland, for example. Okay, this one should be on Canvas. Anticipating income. So there we're thinking about what income are we going to generate. So if you could then head over to Canvas and have a look at the Black Stump Football Club. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let you get set up with this and start populating it like we did with the last couple. Obviously, if you do need to have a break and go to the bathroom, then do so. So we'll just spend a bit of time working through how much money we're actually going to allocate or work out how much income we're going to generate for a community sports club. Back in a second, but start to work through that exercise sheet. Okay.
Board is one line. So you get the details. So you got the order.
This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open the bracket of the basic code and then what to now what That's why we track experience people versus people So he was basically doing that. You have made already. He was basically like doing this. Just click on this button, he writes Excel file, click that, and then just then download. So the Excel file will will be in Excel format. So click that and it will open. And then again this it will open in this manner. So we don't have to type it. Well, just it made
Looking like this.
So that's right.
Okay, how are we getting on? How's everyone getting on? Any issues?
Copy paste कर रहा है copy paste
Okay. So, hopefully that makes sense and you're able to start populating the income for the year based on that. Any issues so far? Again, it's okay. How you guys doing? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about his Gordon Levy?
Juniors. So 18 weeks in the season, right? Fee per week times the number of players. So it's this times multiplied by that.
No, I'm talking about coaching Levy.
Coaching, sorry. So number of players, levy per player. Yeah. You doing? Not bad. How we doing?
Excuse me, sir.
Mm.
We have to multiply this by
Yeah, so players multiplied by registration fee. Teams.
and it will be when we do addition.
multiply the number of players by the registration fee. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to move on just because I'm conscious of time, and unfortunately, we do need to wrap up a wee bit earlier today. So, feel free to obviously complete the rest of the worksheet later on. So once we prepared our budgets, the next step would be, in that exercise, we were thinking about all the income that the organisation was going to generate over the course of the year, and obviously we need to think about our costs accordingly as well, right? So once we've prepared our budgets and we've anticipated how much we're going to generate, the next step would be to approve the budgets. So once we've got that match between the organization's business objectives and the financial consequences of those objectives, so how much money are we going to need to achieve those, a line needs to be drawn under the preparation of the budget stage. So that's when we actually come to approving the budgets, where perhaps you've got board members signing off on the budget for the year ahead. We're then going to implement the budget. So that's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to start working to that budget. So for an example, if an organization's financial year operates from the 1st of April to the following end of March, reasonable expectation for the budget to be approved by the board at least a month before the new financial year started. Okay, we wouldn't want to be starting the financial year without having our budgets in place. Okay. Measure performance. So this is where I mentioned about our variance. So we're looking here, and a few things would probably stand out to us. So if we were looking at this, we would try and work out what our variance. So we can see here, for example, we anticipated we were going to get £20,000 in government grants. but actually we've only had 13,333 so far. That leaves us with a variance. Sorry, we've generated more than we thought we were going to have. So we've got a positive variance of 6,667, which gives us a percentage of what our actual versus our budgeted line is. Okay. Now we can use this to go and work out where we think we're performing well or where we should be a little bit concerned about. So sponsorship spot on 100%. We thought we were going to get 4,000. Sorry, we want to try and achieve a kind of as close to zero as possible. So bank charges, for example, we've got bank charges of £100. We thought we would have bank charges of £100, so our variance is 0%. Okay, so if it's very high or very low, we should be kind of concerned. So our surplus or deficit, we're actually not operating particularly close to what we said we were going to do. Our budget was a surplus of 3,200. It's not a bad thing because we've actually generated £7,225 more than we thought we were, but we've obviously gone somewhere wrong in our budget or something unexpected has happened. So more than likely it's our government grant has come in earlier than we thought we were going to get it. Yeah? Any questions? Anything that you would be particularly concerned about if you saw that for the first time? Our salaries are slightly lower than we thought, so that's possibly not a bad thing. We're going to be saving a wee bit of money there. We've overspent a wee bit on administrative costs and our advertising and promotion, our athlete development, they're all above budget as well. So there may be things that we would need to correct over the course of the season to make sure that we don't massively overspend. But by and large, we're in a relatively healthy position. We've actually got more income. We're performing better than we thought we were going to from a financial perspective.
So the actuals are the costs.
Sorry.
Actuals.
Actuals. So the actual is what we've actually done. Yeah.
Government grant. You gave more than expected.
Yes. So yeah, we've brought in roughly £7,000 more than we thought, and that might just be because the government have paid it earlier. Because this is just for one quarter. So this is just looking at the 1st of January to the 30th of April. So actually, maybe we thought we were going to get 100 grand over the course of the season, and maybe they've just decided to pay some of it a wee bit earlier in that first quarter. So there might be notes to go along to explain why certain things are the way they are. Okay. So financial notes. Okay. No mention of our government grants, but we've got additional membership income. We've got a reason for why the coaching income is slightly different. So these were from an actual set of accounts from Triathlon Scotland, and they give us the context for why things are the way they are. Okay. So our next step would be to act to control business. So if there was something in there that was particularly alarming, perhaps we have spent more money on salaries quite drastically more than we thought we were going to, we'd need to actually act upon it to stop it being a problem for us later down the line. Maybe we'd need to think about redundancy, or we'd need to think about laying some of the staff off, unfortunately. So it's to make sure we use the information that we've generated to inform the direction of the organisation and to be able to make sensible decisions. Highly unlikely there'll be a perfect match between the budget and actual comparisons, but the first decision is whether or not overall variance is within a tolerable range. So whether we're okay with how much the variance is and whether it's going to be a big issue for us later down the line. Okay, but if the variances are considered to be quite significant, that the organisation is out of control, then proactive management might be needed to kind of step in and change the course of direction. On a positive note, if performance is considerably ahead of target, it may be prudent to revise the targets upwards. Therefore, we might actually try and be more ambitious over the course of the year. Okay, we're not going to do this, but actually there's a few things that we need to know about why budgeting sounds great, but there are some issues with it. Okay, so we could probably work these out ourselves. We've got pros and cons. Yeah, it's good because it aids communication. It lets the people in the organisation know what we're hoping to achieve and how we're performing. It helps plans decisions in advance, motivates staff potentially. However, it can be costly and it takes a lot of time to prepare. So actually we'd probably put this in our disadvantages. Can be demotivating if the workers have no input. So if it's just completely directed at board level, and the staff actually have no input into how the budget is corrected. It could be potentially quite demotivating for the staff. It could be subject to manipulations by managers. There would be external influences. So something like COVID, we could have a budget for the year which looks great. Then we've got COVID and all of our budgets are kind of up in the air, complete waste of time because that's something that's completely out with our control and we can't really do anything to prevent. So these are all things that could be worked out as whether they're actually a good thing or a bad thing about budgeting. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to skip ahead to your first assignment, okay, because I'm conscious of time. So for your assignment, your first assignment, which is going to be due, I think, in 3 or 4 weeks' time, okay, you're going to do a cash flow budget, okay? So you're going to take on the role of Andrew Griffin, okay? Andrew Griffin is the finance director for On the Ball FC, okay, fictitious made-up club. You're required to provide a report to the other 5 board members of On the Ball FC on the case for establishing a women's team. So they currently have a number of men's teams, but they're looking to establish a women's team. Okay. In your report, you need to highlight to the other directors what you believe to be the key points which emerge from your budgetary analysis. So you're going to do what we've done today. I'm going to give you information. You're going to produce a cash flow budget. So not just looking at the income and expenditure, but actually looking at it on a month-by-month basis. So in which months do these costs come in and which months are we actually expecting to generate revenue for the club based on this new team? The recommendations need to be fully supported by appropriately budgetary and financial analysis, which is your spreadsheet. So there's going to be 2 components that you need to your submission. Important not to forget them because your budgets are worth 30 marks, okay? So you can get 30 marks out of 100 just for doing your numbers well and your budget's making sense and the correct numbers in the right place, okay? So hence why we're spending this time with the Excel. So 30 easy marks if you do a good job with your budgets, but then your report is the real part of it, okay? So that's your understanding, your interpretation of the cash flow budget. What of 4 scenarios do you think is the most sensible way forward for the club, okay? So we'll go into this a little bit and make more sense. So remember your budgetary calculations, important tool to be used in reaching a decision, but they don't provide the full answer. As you say, you're only going to get 30 marks for the budgets themselves. You need to actually add the analysis to the budgets yourself, okay? So doing the budgets in the first instance and then analyzing them and reporting back to the board on what you think is the best way forward. You need to think about the wider institutional context in which the organization sits in and justify your advice to the rest of the board. And by broader, wider institutional context, what I mean is this is a charitable club that we're talking about here. So remember some of the things we spoke about, community clubs last week. They've got purposes which aren't necessarily just about winning, but they may be about advancing participation in sport. Okay, so think about that context within your analysis. So what's required from you? As I say, there's going to be 2 parts to it. So the first one is an Excel spreadsheet. You're going to upload an Excel spreadsheet, which is 4 different sets of calculations based on variables. So we'll look at what those variables are, but in each one, there's going to be a different, there's going to be a change to either what you're going to be charging your women's team to pay, or what's going to be included as part of their membership package. And then the written report to accompany it. So don't forget, there needs to be 2 parts. Please don't just upload 1 part as part of your assignment because you'll potentially lose quite a lot of marks. Remember, there needs to be 2 parts to the assignment. So the written report itself should be no more than 1,200 words, and the Excel spreadsheet should consist of 4 separate tabs, 4 separate sheets. So at the bottom of those ones you would have been looking at, you can click plus and it will create a new one, okay? Now you can copy and paste the first one that you create as the template. So that's why it's important to get the formula in them correctly, because then you can just adjust the numbers accordingly. Okay. So you're going to read the case study, which is going to be a document, and think about what is required. You're going to prepare monthly cash budgets using a spreadsheet, Excel. The spreadsheet should be prepared reflecting the baseline position. So the baseline position will be the kind of standard position of what would happen if we start a women's team. We're expecting, I think it's 30 players, and they're going to pay this. What is our cash flow going to look like over the course of the year? Secondly, what's going to happen if we increase the registration fees? So if we increase the registration fees, maybe there'll be less people that are able to pay. So the numbers are going to change slightly over the course of the season. What happens if the players purchase their own equipment? So that actually the club doesn't pay for the equipment, but they pay for it. That's also going to affect our cash flow and the budget for the year. And then the fourth outcome is what happens if we increase the membership fees and they are asked to pay for their equipment themselves. Okay. So think about this and remember some of the things that we were talking about, the sort of broader institutional context as well. So what I'm going to do is just get that up on the screen and we'll just have a look now at what that looks like. So you can find the details of the assignment in the assignments tab. So if you go to the assignments tab and you go to the cash flow budget, I've very kindly done a video, so you explain that in a bit more detail for yourself if you want to go back and rewatch that at any point. But all the information is here. Okay, so the context about the club, how it was set up, what the purpose of the club is, okay, who are the other board members, okay. And then what we start to do is get some detail. So the baseline, they're going to charge £425 pound per player to join. Okay, so you're going to start getting the information as we've been doing with the previous assignments. Okay, so see Exhibit 1 here, that relates to this table here, the cost of equipment per player. So let's very quickly just start to populate some of this. You can create a new tab, create a new file. We will also be looking at this again next week, so don't worry too much. What I would recommend maybe doing is having a go over it over the course of this week until our session next week, and ask any questions that you might have next week when we'll spend a bit more time looking at it. Okay. So in the first instance, perhaps worth just creating the template. So we've got our income and expenditure, so our registration fee, okay, and our number of players. Now what your job will be is to work out for our first scenario, so let's call this, what I'd like to see when you submit it is scenario 1, and then you can create separate ones for each different scenario, okay? Scenario 2. Scenario 3. And scenario 4. So don't forget to do the other scenarios. Our first one, and this is going to be, so in our first example, in our baseline, what we'll call our scenario 1, also our baseline, we're going to charge each player £425 to join the club. Okay. We've researched some other women's clubs in the area, and actually we're estimating that around 35 players are going to join the team. Excuse me. Now, this isn't just a standard budget, but this is, as I say, going to be a cash flow budget. So actually, we need to show over the course of the year how this is going to influence our cash flow. So cash flow is how is the money moving in and out of the organisation over the course of the year. Okay. So February, March, April. Okay, so we've got our months of the year, and we've got the income from the club. Okay, and we know that from our report, Registration is going to take place every February with all monies collected at that time of registration. Okay, so what in terms of income, we've got player registrations. What formula are we going to need to use to calculate the income in February?
Multiply.
Correct. Yeah. So rather than putting in those numbers, as I say, what's going to be really helpful for you is using what we've looked at today to use the cells as the reference point, because when you copy this and produce the next 3 scenarios, you can use this as your template and you can adjust the numbers within it right at the top here. Okay. So we've got cell B2 multiplied by cell B3, and that's going to give us £14,875 worth of income to the organisation in February. Okay. Now, what I think would be helpful for you guys to do between now and next week is to populate the rest of this list. So I've obviously started you off here. We'll go through it again next week, but it'd be good for you to have a look at the different strands of income. So we've got fundraising, for example. There's going to be home games, which is going to affect the income. We've got concessions, so food. Okay. We've got, and then we've got our expenses as well. So our expenses, our biggest expenses are going to be things like equipment costs, and we're going to have to pay for things like referees. We're going to have to pay for the practice facilities. So all of that information is going to be on this page of your assignments tab. Okay. Any questions at this stage? Everyone quite happy with that? Everyone think that what we've covered today with Excel is going to help them complete this task? Or does anybody have any questions? What you might find is when you have a go yourself, before we meet again this time next week, is there's something to do with the line of credit. Okay, so if you've had a chance to look through it, you'll know there's a line of credit available to the club, but this only goes to £15,000. So what happens if the club exceeds that, or what happens if they have to start using it? What happens in terms of interest payments? Okay, so we'll look at implementing something called an if statement, but support is here on that as well. Okay, so if you go to there, there's information on how you can use support, but also using this if formula. Okay. Any questions at this stage? Everyone quite happy with that so far? Everybody clear on what you have to do? Yeah. In terms of the report itself that you'll need to write, think about the structure. So a very brief introduction. It doesn't need to be a very long introduction because you're writing to fellow board members. They're obviously going to be aware that we're going to be exploring the setup of a women's team, but perhaps explain each of the scenarios. Okay, so the fact that perhaps in one scenario we're going to be increasing the membership fee, the next scenario we're asking them to pay for their equipment, and then in the fourth one we're going to ask them to do both. And then a recommendation. Don't forget your recommendation. Try to stick to one of the 4 recommendations in the report. You might want to come up with something completely new, but try and base it on what you've discussed within your analysis. Of course, you can make some suggestions, but at least have a lead recommendation from those 4 scenarios. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to say, leave you to have a go at that. Let's finish this session with a quick knowledge check on what you've covered today. Okay, so you can scan that QR code or go to menti.com and, oh no, just scan that QR code probably. Okay. Recap of what we've done today. What is the main purpose of a budget for a sports organisation? To analyse past financial performance, to plan for the future income and expenditure, to reduce taxes, or to improve marketing strategies. Good. Yep. To plan for the future. Excellent. Question 2. What is the first step in the budgeting process? So remember that circle we looked at? What was the first step within it? Good. Yep. So we spoke about defining our objectives, whether that was to be, winning the Premier League or getting more people involved in community activities. Number 3, what is a common characteristic of a long-term budget for a sports club? So a long-term budget. What would a sort of time span for a long-term budget be? Good. Yep, 3 to 5 years. Excellent. Which of the following is a SMART objective for a community tennis club? We didn't actually look at SMART objectives, but SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and I can't remember the first one. Last one is. Good. Yeah. So increasing the use of outdoor courts by 20% during weekends. So we're trying to be specific with what our objective is here and what it is we're trying to do. So yeah, good. Something we can measure as well. Oh, quick catch up on the scores. Well done, Dora. Dora the Explorer. In management accounting, financial data is primarily used for what? Yeah, good. So we're not necessarily thinking about how we report the performance of the organization to people externally, but actually we're thinking about what do we need to do internally with our budgets. What is the purpose of auditing resources in the budgeting process? Good. Good. So we're making sure that actually our objective is realistic and we've got the resources to be able to match it. And then question 7, why might a sports organisation fail if they do not engage in sound budgeting practices? Yep, good. So then I won't be able to plan and manage financial performance. And then last question. What is the final stage of the budgeting process? Good. Acting to control the business. Well done. So, winner. Oh, stolen it at the end, have they?
This always happens to me.
Congratulations. Well done. That was good. I apologise, we're a bit short today, but next week, as I say, we'll spend more time going through the assignment. It'll be available after next week's session as well if anyone has any questions more specifically they want to ask about it. But is that okay for now? Have a go at the assignment. The recording will be available online if you want to go back and have a look at anything we've looked at today.